Okay. So going back to Stifler's thing, I was just a little confused. What exactly kind of is your objection again with the rating looks on a scale of 1 to 10 thing?
I think because I think the subject here is very much around dating and how people view themselves when they're dating, and because I never really was taking into account what my physical looks were when I met my husband, and I wasn't taking into account his physical looks either. None of that really was an equation for me, and so I don't think along those lines.
So Andrew, you might have missed it. I was asking her when, with her, she's married, when you first met him, and I asked, you weren't even considering looks at all, even a little bit. It wasn't even weight, height, nothing, facial symmetry, nothing. So are you not physically attracted to your husband? I'm a bit confused.
No, I'm attracted to him, yeah.
Okay.
What are the qualities that make him attractive physically?
Well, he's very intelligent.
No, physically.
Oh, physically?
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's the thing. I have went on dates before with guys who you would define as like a physical model, and I've been completely unattracted to them and bored with them.
Sure.
So for me, attraction actually is very much based on how I feel with them and whether or not they stimulate me intellectually.
Yeah, well, I
like
get
intelligent
that.
men.
But
I'm
like
attracted to intelligent men.
My wife, one of the things that she does it even annoys my chat and things like this. All she does is talk about how stunningly gorgeous I am, which is in no way, shape, or form true, but she's very kind to do it. Okay, but what she does is she'll say, I like this quality, I like that quality, I like this quality. She tells a story about how when we met, she opened the door, she heard Dreamweaver in her head, right, the whole 9 yards. Speaks very, very highly of me. From the perspective of the husband, he's sitting at home watching you right now, right? And
I can tell you some things I like.
Yeah, what's the physical qualities?
He has a nice
that you
smile,
like?
and he's got, I guess, pretty colored eyes. I don't know.
But that's all your physical. So just no physical attraction at all. That doesn't matter at all.
I'm attracted to him, but it's not one of those things where like I'm not shallow in that I will dismiss somebody if they don't look like a certain thing I'm after. Like for me, like I said, I will dismiss somebody if I think that they're stupid, or if I think I don't respect them, or if I think that they're mean or arrogant or condescending. I will not be attracted. Any bit of physical will be gone if there's personality issues, or if I see that person is.
Yeah, I get it, but the reason that this is asked is we're purely looking at the physical end of it, which you would agree is super important for maybe not you. Maybe you're the one exception to this rule I've ever found, but most everybody has some kind of qualification for physical attractiveness. Even you must. Like, for instance, you wouldn't debate or you wouldn't date a guy who's 900 pounds, right? That would be.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. I probably wouldn't want to date
probably wouldn't want it. So there
pounds.
are some physical barriers. So we're looking at that. We're saying what you would consider those physical barriers there, you could kind of assume what men's physical barriers may be, and based on those, how would you rate your physical looks to that?
I'd have to ask the men. I've heard different things from men as to what they think I look like. From your
perspective of what you think men would think.
How men have thought about me, what they think my number is?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's probably, obviously I'm 33 right now, so my number's probably gone down.
Sure.
Right? When I was younger, a lot of men, I always was just constantly being approached by almost every man I was coming into contact with. But, I mean, how much do men just say to women, you're gorgeous, you're beautiful, you're stunning, you're this, all the time? And that's just not just them saying it.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I'm just saying, based right now, you're 33, how you look right this second, how would you perceive that most men would perceive you on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest for physical attractiveness, 0 being the least? 1,000 pounds, jowls out to here, zits all over the face, right?
Right.
Where are you at in that scale?
I don't know. That's
if
why
you
I said
had to guess.
Men are visual creatures.
Let's just say you guessed. If you had to guess.
If I had to guess.
Yeah, I had to guess. Yeah.
I don't know. I already told you. I think we should let
you
the
don't
audience
know
do
how
it.
You don't know a guess?
Well, I know that
I mean, it's a
my
guess.
husband would say he probably thinks I'm a 10.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, but you.
Okay.
But what do I think?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna just move on. Go ahead.
I don't know.
I would say like a 6 or a 7.
Same.
Okay. All right. Andrew?
4.
4. Okay, I give myself a 5.
Twin.
5. All right. There you have it. There you have it, folks. I have maybe a quick throw out here. Actually, let me read this chat really quick. Glad I tuned in tonight. Instead of a bunch of 304s, we have a based 306. No fucking idea what the 306 is, but come back to South Korea, SK. We need more women like you.
Oh, SK, is that Saskatchewan, sir?
Oh, could
Oh,
be.
yeah.
Oh, I think
Yeah.
he's saying you're based.
Maybe 306
Oh,
because
yeah,
it's north. I don't know.
Saskatchewan is where I'm
Because it's,
from.
I don't know.
What's a 304?
Definitely an area code.
What is
Yeah,
a
it's an area code.
306?
Yeah.
Definitely.
You mean
I saw
host?
based and got happy.
300.
So
Huh?
thanks.
Is it supposed to be? Never mind.
He's
One
got
one
area
question
codes.
related to the rating thing. Does anybody here think they're going to be more physically attractive in 10 years as compared to how you look now? All else being equal, does anybody here think they'll be more physically attractive in 10 years' time? Starting with you. Go ahead.
No.
No.
I mean, no, objectively, probably not.
I don't know. Realistically, societally, probably not.
Okay.
I don't know, but going by the typical pattern of things, probably not.
No.
No.
I think so. I think that your 30s are your prime.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. What about, let's go 10 years forward.
Well, hang on. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So 20 years from now, you are 21, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so are you going to be more physically attractive at 41 as compared to now at 21, all else being equal?
No, at 41 I would not be.
Okay, so you think you'll peak early 30s, basically, looks-wise.
Right, yes.
All else being equal.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Well,
You had something, Andrew?
I did. So, do you think that attractiveness between men and women is tied to fertility? Do you think that would be a good reason for why men would find younger women to be attractive is because younger women have high fertility?
I think that that's part of it, yes.
Not in all
What-
cases.
Really? What would be the other case? Besides a fetish.
Well, that was pretty much it.
Yeah,
Real quick.
so that's like
Lack of
if you're
mental
gonna
maturity.
if you're gonna introduce like lunacy to it, like fetishes or something like this, sure. But generally speaking,
Wait, can you say the question again, like simplified again? Sorry.
yeah. So don't you think that what is considered attractive between men and women would often be tied to fertility?
I mean, there's that argument for sure, but when I ask my father about it, he tells me that he bases it on a woman's relationship with God, her spirituality, as well as her intelligence, because he needs to be able to trust that woman to raise children with him.
Well, I wish your dad was
And-
sitting where you are, because
Well-
if I said the woman had all of those things, but all things being equal, you had to pick between one who was a 4 and one who was a 10, and both of them had all those same qualities, which would you pick? Your dad would say the 10.
Well, he said circumstantially. It depends on what that woman is capable of doing and what
I just said they have the exact same values, just one's
Well, then
hotter
I
than
guess
the other.
well,
maybe.
would you pick
guess,
a
but then
a
that's not what
20-year-old
I'm
10
talking
over your
about.
wife?
No, of course not.
Okay, why?
Because of the value distinction.
Okay, well, I think that's
Yeah,
what she's
but- yeah,
pointing out.
I'm not actually-
That literally makes no sense what you just said. My question to her was, they have the same values. You say, what about the distinction of values? It makes no sense to my question. The
Okay,
values are
okay.
identical.
If the values are identical, maybe a man would prefer the one who's more attractive, who has the exact same values.
And why would they
But-
prefer the one who's more attractive?
I mean, that's. I'm not a man that I should answer that.
Oh, okay.
All I'm saying is that.
Wait. Why would you have to be a man in order
Because
to
I don't
answer that?
Because it's circumstantial. Like I said.
It's not circumstantial. The human
Can I
race must
finish what I'm
survive,
saying?
right?
Can I finish what I'm saying, sir, please?
Well, I
What
mean,
I'm-
can you make it quick? Can you make it snappy?
Well, I could have been done
Can
if
you
you
stop
didn't
being so
interject me.
no, I
condescending?
can't. So anyway, can you make it
What
quick?
I'm saying is, like I said, I've asked my father the same questions, and what he
Mm-hmm.
delineates to me is that it's circumstantial based on what he's compatible with that that woman what she's capable to do with him in a relationship, in raising children, having a home, having a relationship with God, and things like that. It's not just on attraction alone. And he would take someone.
I know,
who's-
we know this, but I don't understand why you're incapable of engaging with this. You don't have to be a man in order to engage with the idea that, of course, men are going to be attracted to women who are more fertile.
But
and on top of that, I gave you the equation of same value structure that your dad would like. Woman who's 4 has it, woman who's 10 has it. You say he'll pick the woman who's 10. I say,
I said he
great,
might
if you'll
pick
pick
the
the
one
woman who's
who's more
10, why? You go, I'm not qualified to answer that. That's crazy.
Well,
you
I'm
think-
saying that you said, okay, I said that if the attraction was 10 and 4, maybe he might pick the one who's a 10.
Why?
If they have the same values.
Why?
Because maybe he might be whatever. But
Well,
you
no,
just
not whatever.
equated
The
it to
whatever is the
fertility,
question.
and that's not what I
No,
initially
the
said.
whatever
What I
is
said
the
had nothing
question.
to do with fertility.
The whatever is the question.
Because of our biological wiring.
Right. So the question is the whatever part. Why would he be attracted to the 10 over the 4, even if they have the same values, other than because
I can't answer that for him because he doesn't answer questions like that.
Do you have
Like,
daughters?
he literally doesn't
Yes.
answer questions like that.
Do you value them and love them based on how physically beautiful they are?
No, of course not.
Why?
Because I'm looking at the value structure of the human
Okay.
being.
So, do you think God judges and values the women, his daughters, based on 1 through 10 of how they look?
No.
No. And what does it say in the Bible about
What
judging
does
a
that
woman?
have to do with what
Judging
makes a
woman.
man's dick hard, lady? What does that have to do with what makes a man's penis go up? What God values in a woman
Very
or a
close.
child, or what you value
So you're
in a
talking
woman?
about sin and lust.
No, I'm
That's what you're
talking about physical attractiveness.
Okay, that's what you're talking
Okay.
about.
No, I'm talking about physical attractiveness. You do realize in order to have a baby, you have to have sex?
Yes, I know, but
Oh,
it also
great!
says
You
in
know
the
that.
Bible,
That's crazy.
and you're supposed to be Christian
Does
to judge a woman
is
based
a
on their
penis
heart.
required to be hard for
Okay.
you to have sex? Would that require an attractiveness level so that the
But-
penis can get hard to have sex to have the baby?
But
How many drinks have you had
you
tonight?
sure are
I wanna
pretty,
know.
Andrew, have
degrading
you been-
to the
you've been
woman.
drinking?
I don't think
I really hope the
crazy.
future your
How many
future
drinks have you
son-in-law.
had, Andrew?
I really
Not
hope
enough.
your future son-in-laws
pretty-
don't treat your daughters the way you treat and think about women.
I'm pretty sure.
How do I think about
Christian
women?
Fathers
Wait,
are
wait, wait.
teaching
No,
their
no,
daughters
back up,
to be
back up.
Virtuous women of Proverbs 31.
Can you help
Like,
me
they're
out?
not
How do
being-
I think about women? By saying that there's going to be a physical metric for attractiveness, how is it that I'm in any way deviating from any type of Christian virtue? Tell me.
I mean, you
the
never.
way you're
you ne-
talking about women in the way you're talking
You're
about
talking
how
about fertility being the standpoint
a
rather
woman's
than Proverbs
value-
31.
Attractiveness,
Right?
yes.
Yeah, but
Right.
Proverbs 31 mentions a whole list of things as opposed to simply just fertility. So God says, and a man wrote that.
Strictly talking
so-
about physical attractiveness, and that's it.
But that's not what men decide. Well,
Men
at least my
shouldn't be
father
choosing
never
That
told me
is-
that that's all that he makes the decision
I
on when
think
he's
not
talking about a woman.
I think what he's saying
So-
is
Oh my
that
God,
say that
this
there are
is
two
absurd.
women that both fulfill the Proverbs 31 things, but one is less physically attractive and one is more physically attractive. Which would the man go with? Say he wasn't married or
I
anything.
can't say that he'd pick
just
the 10 because I
neutrally
don't know what the
looking.
10 looks like, and I don't know what the 4 looks like. I don't know what the preference is. The 10
mean-
could be
Yeah,
a
I
4
know
and a 4
physical
could be a 10.
attraction
Talk to
means
someone
nothing.
ungodly like me.
We're not
Physical
saying it
attraction
means
means nothing.
We're
All
not
that
saying it means
matters
nothing.
is what the virtues are. We all go get 9,000 pound you know what I mean? It's just crazy. We're talking specifically about physical attraction. Of course, it's going to be tied to fertility. Of course, it's going to be tied to fertility. Why wouldn't it be?
You're asking me to think like a man. and I
No, I'm
don't.
not. I'm
You're
asking
me what
females
kind
are
of,
highly competitive with other women
no,
when it
but
comes
that
to
doesn't
mate
mean
selection.
that I know what a man's going to prefer mentally, and you're asking me to answer a question like a man. What one would a man prefer? How would I know that?
Do you
I'm
have
a
to
female.
compete? Do you have to compete with other females for virtuous men?
Maybe, but I'm
Yeah,
a
maybe.
female.
So how?
I think like
how
a woman.
and how would you
I
compete?
only know what a man
how
wants
would you
because my
compete with
father
other
told
women?
me.
How would you compete with other women for a virtuous man?
I would ask my father what a man would want.
And
if
what do
I'm
you think your
interested in
father would say?
somebody.
Do you think your father would say, "Well, looking like shit would be the best thing you could do"?
No, that's obviously
No,
you have to take care of
obviously
yourself,
not.
But that doesn't mean that. All I'm saying is it's not like the only thing. But you can't
I'm
sit
not
here and
saying-
ask
nobody
a group
said
of
it's the
women
only thing.
how
Nobody
a
said
man
that.
thinks is the best thing. You're not gonna get that response out of them. There's a group of women, like they're not gonna be thinking
Like women don't compete with each other.
But they
How-
do not think
do you
like
think
men.
That we
Okay,
don't
but
know
what's
this?
your
Think like
point?
men.
Because I agree with your argument. Okay, fertility plays a part in sexual attractiveness. What's the point?
The whole point of this was just to state that yes, we understand that there's virtues that men are after. Of course, that's true. There's virtues that women should be after, but nowadays it seems like less and less. But men, I think, are attracted to virtue. I think that is a big role.
Really?
But if we were to take...
Have you seen the rise of OnlyFans?
It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But if we were to take virtue...
But women.
If we were to take virtue
We're the
out...
slutty ones.
If we were to take virtue out of the equation and just look at the pure physical and just look at physical attractiveness, we're not looking at all the virtues, this and that, just whatever is aesthetically pleasing. That's all we're talking about, physical attractiveness.
I mean,
Nothing
at
more.
the end of the day, like any human being is going to value aesthetics. You're gonna choose the better looking car.
That's
The car might have the same engines, it might do the same exact thing, but are you gonna choose the one that's all scratched up, or are you gonna choose the brand new shiny one? At
Right.
the end of the day, you want a pretty rock over a cracked up one. So if you're asking that, like, it's just human nature to like something.
Well, this
that's
is why
visually
I think when
pleasing.
this question is asked of women in particular, when they refuse to give a rating, it's because they don't want to be honest. And so what they do is they reframe every way that they can. But what about this quality, that quality? And it's like, look, we're just talking about physical attractiveness in and of itself. I understand there's other qualities. And maybe even combining those with physical attraction may raise it a point, lower it a point. But I think people still, when it comes to physical attractiveness, it's still tied to fertility. That's why men are attracted to younger women. Why wouldn't that be the case? It makes complete sense. So I don't understand why women are incapable of rating themselves unless they just don't want to give the answer.
Because
they really
it's a matter of what do the men perceive as beautiful or attractive, and that can vary from man to man. And then like Keisha was saying, you're asking us to kind of think along
I don't
those
think women
lines.
are ignorant to this.
I think that women have a different probably standard for what they think is beautiful and
It's less
attractive
based on
versus
fertility
men.
and more on
like I think that women would
your skin,
women
your
would probably
clothing.
judge
but you would
aesthetics,
still,
and maybe
but you would
men
still
might
be
judge
looking at
She would be-
fertility signs.
you would have to
woman
look at
would
the
be an
standard on
idiot
both
to
edges,
try and
right?
think like a
So for
man.
you to perceive the beauty of women, there's no way for you to say that you wouldn't be influenced on how men perceive women. I don't see how
Yes,
that's...
I would be
Yeah, of course you
influenced.
would. So I don't think women are ignorant of this. I don't
Asking
think...
a
all
woman,
encompassing.
asking a woman to
There's a lot
delineate
of-
that
Not saying it's
information
all
is asking her to
encompassing.
behave like a
I'm
feminist.
just saying that
and
I
that's
think
not-
most women...
Right.
You're
I
asking her
think
to be
that-
a feminist right
No,
now.
I'm not asking her to be a
yes,
feminist.
because asking her to delineate the
asking
information
us
that a
to
man
think
would
like
tell
men.
a woman is asking her to be a feminist and think like a feminist. A woman is not going to
No,
assess
feminism
herself.
doesn't mean can't
A woman
think.
is not going to
That's
assess
not what it
herself
means.
the way that a man assesses a
Didn't
woman.
ask him to.
You just asked her.
No, I
how
asked
would a
her to
man-
rate herself based on what she thinks.
Okay, then.
That would be the opposite of what I'm
But you
asking her
mentioned a
what
man-
men
but
think. I'm
a
saying
man-
that men have standards.
Okay.
Yes, we know men have standards because
but they're
men
not
have
gonna-
because men have standards. That is going to inform your opinion on
fine.
how you rate yourself
But they're not going to think of it the way that a man would. So you asking her to rate herself she's
based
gonna
on
think of
what
it-
she thinks.
Okay, herself. That's different than to what a man.
Yes,
would
I
think.
know, which is why we asked her that.
I mean, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, like at the end of the day.
Right, it is.
So you can say you're a 10, you can say you're a 1. It doesn't really matter because everybody has a different view on it. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. So the question that you're asking is, it just doesn't matter
Like,
in our minds.
Yeah, women,
one
it does
one
not
guy
matter.
could rate a girl as a 7, and another guy could rate her as an 8, and another guy could rate her as a 2, and another guy could rate her as a 9, and it depends on what that guy finds attractive.
But wasn't it asking what we thought of ourselves?
yes.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's to
Yeah,
gauge,
but then for him to say that it's not realistic in the eyes of men. So the point
No,
is
I'm
going to
just
come
saying
back.
that
think
your
it's to try to
self-assessment will
show-
be informed also by men. That's the point.
And I think it also shows, are you affected by delusion?
Yes.
Yes.
To just pretend it does not exist and that, I can't
Well, no one
rate-
said
I
it
don't
didn't
know.
exist.
I don't
That's
know.
not the
No,
point.
but like
yeah.
when people hyper conflate their looks, well, then they would also expect to make possibly match with somebody who they think are their equivalent. But if you're honest with yourself, then you're going to match yourself and not have this hyper conflated idea of what you're going to go after.
That's understandable. I agree with
So
that.
that's why they're trying to just gauge a sense of delusion.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
But there was a mention of a man's perspective, and that's all that I said was not possible.
The mention of a man's perspective was to say how you end up ultimately determining what your value is, 1 through 10. And it's arbitrary. Nobody says it's not. Is at least somewhat going to be informed and how the opposite sex perceives you and what you've witnessed the opposite sex considering to be attractive or unattractive. That's what's going to be true because that's how information in your brain works.
internalized
learn
male
that from your
gaze,
father,
as
so.
said by someone on the right.
No, that's not an internalized.
Yeah, it is. You just argued that
No.
we look at ourselves through the male
I'm
gaze.
saying that we look at. No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. You
I
said, how do
that
you know
it
you're attractive if you don't
I
use
said
the
it
men's
can assist you in
things.
making an informed
Okay, it can
self-assessment.
assist me,
Right.
so
But the
it's there.
same would be true the opposite way. So is that informed female gaze?
Yeah.
Okay, so
There's
then,
a female gaze too.
Okay, so then if that's the case, then we're talking about nothing. We're just talking about objective reality.
I know, but some people argue that the male gaze doesn't exist. So
Well, it depends on how you're defining
women have
it.
an internalized
If you just
man
define
inside
what
of
the
them.
male gaze
you
is
have
as,
concurred with me that women
if
have an
you're just-
internalized perception of what men think.
well,
of
it's
them.
going to help inform it. There's no way around it.
You know, earlier when you asked me what disadvantages me when I'm born a woman, that.
Okay, but
Instantaneously, I have to wake up in the morning and do my
then
makeup
why
and get pretty.
did you just say men?
Because I have an internalized
You just
man
said that
inside of
men
me.
suffer from the same thing, which means that, again, you just negated your
Yeah,
own point.
but the one for men value fertility much higher than women do. Do you
So
see
what?
men doing their makeup
No,
in the
they
morning
don't.
so they look more fertile?
Women-
Yeah.
no,
women
they
do
don't.
because the internalized male gaze is way stronger than the
How
internalized
can
female
you?
gaze.
Let's prove it.
I just did.
How?
Women do makeup, women dress way nicer, women do their
And
nails.
men wear nice
women-
clothes, and they try to get high status, and they try to get tons and tons of money, and they try to do all those
but
things.
that's the female gaze is money, and there are so many.
what?
because
So
of
I
the-
don't understand how it's not
listen
moved.
to this. Because of the feminist movement these days, women will go for ugly broke men, but men are not going for ugly women. Obviously, they're
What women are
internalized
going
male
for
gaze.
ugly broke men? What women are out there going for ugly broke men? Almost none.
The ones with no dads.
That's not what the stat like you. So you go for ugly broke men?
For real, yeah. My ex, yeah. I'm not ashamedly, but my point was, as someone on the right, you admit that women have a male gaze inside of them. They can see how men.
Yeah, what I'm
view
saying is
them,
that every
and they internalize the patriarchy.
human being,
and that internalization is already a negative effect.
What I'm
on
saying
my
is that
day-to-day
every
life.
human being who exists, regardless of where they're at in the world, if there's other human beings who are around them, it's going to inform their opinion of themselves and their opinion of the
Yeah, true.
surrounding
But one of them is the
environments.
full standards of the male gender. That's
But that would be
that's on me.
true the opposite way too, which would make you a misandrist.
No, it is true the opposite way, but I'm
Then
saying that
you're
the
a
male
misandrist.
standards are so much higher than the female standards.
Why, prove that.
I will-
You didn't
I
that's
will
where
say-
you deviate. Where's the proof for that claim?
Okay.
I will
Oh,
say
okay,
that
maybe
a
it's
lot
fake.
of male
That's my
Well, no,
opinion.
no. Where's the proof to that claim?
I'd like
will
to hear
s-
her speak.
I will say that a lot of male standards are very looks based because the fertility importance is much higher in women, because they're the ones that are carrying a child. And so when that sort of standard lapses as they get older and everything, then it's like, okay, my value just boom. But men
Because
can
it
have,
does go boom.
No, exactly.
Yeah, and for men it
sure.
What
For
does
men,
looks
it,
have
for
to
men
do
it
with
doesn't
fertility?
because
Yeah, but it's a trade-off because in
Actual
younger
biological
ages for men,
fertility.
Oh, right, they
it's
don't have as
often,
much
yeah, they don't have
finances.
as much power
Right.
in order to attract their mate. So it's a trade-off both ways. So to say that it's more keen in one than the other, you'd have to demonstrate that to me.
it's just I think it's
and you have to demonstrate it to me the opposite
But-
way. You'd
I
have
think
to
it is more
falsify it.
But
confining when it's
I
just
don't.
physical.
I
We're
wouldn't.
just
I
talking
actually
each other
wouldn't.
with
I
our
wouldn't
opinions.
need.
So you don't
I wouldn't
stop
need
asking
to
me for
falsify it. I would just negate it.
Do you think that men only pick women to be with or marry based on how high they are on that 1 through 10 numbering system?
No.
No, but
So
they go
when
for that higher number if they could.
why is that so important in this topic?
Because I suspect that men who enter into matrimony with a woman want to have children, and in order to do that, they have to be able to perform in the bedroom, and in order to do that, they have to have some semblance of attraction to the person they're having sex with. Do you
Okay.
agree or disagree?
Well, yeah.
Well, yeah. So I don't understand why
said
you asked
some
the question.
semblance, but we're not talking about every guy isn't going to marry a 10. Every girl isn't going to marry a 10.
Most guys are
right?
never going to marry a 10, and most women are not 10s to marry. So
Okay, so why use that value if that's not the only thing that people are going to judge when they're choosing a life partner? Why is that so important?
we're not saying that's the only value.
Okay.
We're asking specifically only on the one criteria of the physical. We're not saying that other values don't exist. Tens of thousands of other values exist. All sorts of little nuances and niches exist for different behaviors that you're interested in. We're purely talking about
I want
physical
you to rate
attractiveness.
your wife 1 to 10 then.
Okay, as soon as you rate your husband 1 to 10.
No, rate your wife.
As soon as you rate your
went
husband.
around.
I
Hold
mean,
on.
you didn't
no,
want her to
you don't
answer
want to
questions,
answer.
and you're going to
Answer the question.
Mm-hmm.
You went around and you want all these women to rate themselves, right? So rate
Yeah.
your wife.
On pure physical attractiveness at her age, my wife is about a 6. Now rate your husband.
I would
Do it.
leave.
Your turn.
I don't.
Yeah, I don't. That's
No, I
right.
told you I don't use a number.
Distinction between
rate him?
honesty and a liar,
No, are you
ladies
saying
and gentlemen.
rate him physically?
Yes,
on physical
physically
attraction?
only.
Not on my
Only
attraction to him?
physically. Yes.
That's what the rating scale is.
Do it. I just did. Do it. You can't do it.
I'm not doing
Yeah,
that.
mean,
that's
she
right.
couldn't do
You're not
it,
fucking
so-
doing it.
Disrespectful.
Totally dishonest.
No.
Demands it from me, refuses to say it
you're
herself.
the one setting the standard.
My
of wanting
wife's
to
literally
ask these
watching
people.
it. Guarantee she's not upset at all. But you can't answer
No,
the
'cause
question
I
honestly.
think it's a disrespectful question.
Why?
Because I think
Because it's true.
That's her own values. If she doesn't want to answer,
Yeah.
she doesn't
Right,
want
but
to answer.
demands that the other person does.
Yeah, because you're
she
the
ask you a
one
question?
saying, you're the one asking a table full of women to rate themselves.
So,
Actually,
to give
it was
a
different.
self,
Life.
so wait a second. I'm
It was
asking
actually
a
stiffer.
table full of women to make a self-assessment based on pure physical qualities.
Right.
And you say this is an impossibility to begin with. Okay, well, granted. Then you said, fine, I'll call you out. Rate your wife. Okay, I did. Rate
Okay.
your husband. No.
No, I'm not going to rate
It's
it.
fucking pathetic.
It's not pathetic.
Yeah, it is pathetic.
I think it's disrespectful. So I would be a
Right,
hypocrite
yeah.
to then rate
You
him
are,
on
you're
a number
hypocrite.
system of 1
You're a
through 10.
hypocrite now because you made the
No.
demand you yourself won't fulfill.
Right, because my point
Because
is
you
it's
can't.
disrespectful, and
No.
I think the fact that
Do you not
are
know-
rating your wife even with that is
You
kind of
know,
disrespectful.
why
to
is it
her.
disrespectful? Do you think? How do you think she rates herself? Maybe she rated herself this way 15 times and I'm using her rating.
Well, I think that's sad.
Why?
Because you should probably rate her a 10. She's your
What
wife.
do you rate yourself? Because you ain't as good looking as she is, honey.
Okay,
So-
well, that's fine.
I'm just saying.
And
No
that's
need to
how
be
you're.
there.
That's your
That's not
opinion.
necessary.
It is necessary.
opinion.
Well,
There's
no,
no
this
really
is
no
this is
to
exactly
anybody.
why I said like the question of rating yourself was from a
It's
man's
shallow.
perspective.
It's
A
very
woman's not going to
shallow.
answer the way that you want her to because in the end, the conclusion that you're coming to is not what they're calculating. So it's already an unfair.
It's not unfair.
It is. It is unfair.
Then how
because-
come men? How come
It's
men
not
can
your
make those
husband, though?
self-assessments then?
No, I'm not talking about because what you're asking right now, the line of questioning that you're going down, that the end result is completely different to what is being discussed amongst the women that are answering, and even what you mentioned coming down to the delusion or whatever. It's like that's not what they're even thinking about. The question is
Who's not thinking about that?
the women answering when they're like, oh, what are you rating yourself? They're not thinking about, oh, well, am I delusional? You just
No,
asked, what do
because
you
they are
rate
delusional,
yourself?
so of course
and
they're
they're
not
gonna,
thinking about that.
And I'm not, hey, I said 4. I could care less. But the
And I am a
fact is-
4.
the
So if you get a
fact
6,
is-
that's going up, right? That's good.
Yeah, but the fact is, what you're looking the answer for, they're clearly not thinking. And what's being displayed very clearly here is chess versus checkers. Just like I said at the beginning, the outcome that you're looking for is not what's understood in the initial questioning
What
or the
outcome
response.
am I looking for?
Well, what you mentioned about, the delusions and
No, I'm saying that's why they asked that
I
question.
understand that's why
I'm
they
not
asked
looking
the
for anything.
question.
I just answered the question.
No, but
I wasn't posing
it was
the
a correct.
question.
It was a correct answer. I understand that's where it was going, but I'm
Right.
saying that's not what's understood in a woman's mind when you ask, "What are you rating yourself and why?" That's not what it. That's exactly
Yeah,
what
but
I'm saying.
I don't. So this
the
is
whole
this is
argument
nonsense.
is that's
That's
the
nonsense.
point. The whole argument here is nonsense.
No, it's not. What you're saying the argument is nonsense.
No, because
what?
it's-
Tell me what could
it's completely
possibly
different.
bar you from giving a self-assessment on what you think
A
your rating is
self-assessment
for
completely
attractiveness?
different than the outcome that you're.
Yeah, I
tending
know.
towards.
That's a distinction with no merit. What's barring
Everyone
you?
gave an answer.
No, they didn't. But what's barring you from giving an assessment of your own personal attractiveness? Nothing.
Everyone gave an assessment of
No,
their
they
personal
didn't.
attractiveness,
No.
save
Who
Millie,
didn't?
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then everybody. So then that would not be everybody then.
Okay, except for Millie.
Yeah, except for the person who didn't. Who
Yeah.
you said it's impossible for her to do it.
I never
even though
said
you
it's
yourself
impossible
did it.
for
Well,
her
technically, I could
I
throw
never
out
said
a
it's
random
impossible for
number.
her to rate herself.
I said
I said the outcome you're
men
looking for at
decide.
the end of the whole line of
Let them
questioning
decide.
is not where their mind's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, at the end of the day, every answer is going to seem delusional. They're not looking at.
They
what
don't
you're
all
looking at.
seem delusional.
Well, a lot of the times it does, or is.
What does that
going
have to
be.
do with anything?
Just like I said, it's not the same line of thinking.
It is the same line of thinking.
the
I
same
don't
line of
understand.
thinking.
What's
They're
the
not answering
distinction
the same
between
question.
a man giving a self-assessment and a woman giving a
The
self-assessment?
reason is different.
What is the reason?
Well, you're talking about the fertility and the physicality or whatever, like being attractive and things like that.
The same reasoning that women would have.
actually, that's not what was said earlier.
No. What's being said is they tried to displace the actual question and say, I'm going to go for everything except what is physical.
Women don't think like that.
No, they do think like that. One thing women do think like is how attractive am I? Yes, they do.
That's not what I'm talking about, though. That's not.
It is what you're talking about.
No, because that is not what I'm talking about.
Then what are you talking about?
That's not how they gauge attractiveness. A lot of women will gauge attractiveness based on how they feel, or what they think benefits them emotionally or mentally or whatever. It's not just physicality. Like.
Yes, but we're asking the question of pure physicality, and I don't think that women are so irrational they can't answer the question based on that.
That has nothing to do with irrationality. And everybody answered, like I said, except for Millie. What I'm saying is the end result that you're looking for.
And do you think you were
not
accurate? Do you think you were accurate in your assessment?
That has nothing to do with what I'm saying.
Oh, well, it has something to do with what I'm saying. Do you think you were accurate with your assessment?
You're deflecting from what I'm talking about.
I'm not deflecting at all. I'm asking a direct question.
Nothing to do
do
with
you
the
think your
initial
assessment
question.
was accurate?
I'm not a man. I don't know how a man would rate me. You can ask your audience.
Oh, okay.
I don't care.
Fine.
It has.
So you don't know?
I said 4. I stand by 4.
Okay.
I don't care.
Do you think it's accurate?
Doesn't matter if I think it's accurate or not. A man might agree.
Why would you
might
give
disagree.
a number if you don't think it's accurate?
That's not what I said. I said
that is what you said.
I gave a 4. I stand by 4. I said if a man agrees, I'm not going. I don't know if a man's going to agree or not. He might agree. He might not agree.
But you gave the number, so clearly you think the number's accurate, right?
I said 4.
Do you think that's accurate? Because if you don't think it's accurate, why would you give the number?
I said.
Would you rather she not give one at all?
I don't get it.
Oh my God.
Like, I don't actually understand the conversation at this point.
No, you're deflecting from the initial point here, which is that you asked a question that you know women will answer differently based on how they feel, and are going in a completely different direction in the end about something completely different that men portray in a different way.
Yeah, but the question becomes, is it because they're being honest or not? Or if it's really because they're just irrational like you're claiming?
It's a completely different line of thinking, and it doesn't matter if...
Nobody says that they're not thinking about it along different lines, but that doesn't mean that they're still not being dishonest or they're being honest.
How are they being dishonest about what they
Because
feel?
I've seen 250-pound fat obese whales sitting right there saying they're 10.
Is anybody here 250
Again,
pounds?
and now you're deflecting.
No,
But that just goes to show
the women here right
You're
now.
not.
That just goes to
I don't
show
think he's
how
talking about you,
pointless
Renee.
the question
I don't think
is.
he's talking about you.
Because
saying
you
I've
could say
seen
any
I've
number.
seen those women do that, and clearly they're being dishonest. And when questioned, it's obvious they're being dishonest. That's why.
Okay, but
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
basing our argument right now based on
Yes.
previous
Are you
assessments of
asking
other
them
people
You
as
mean
opposed to
how-
the women in
opinion
front
of
of you?
ourselves
Well, it's an empirical
or men's
question.
appearing?
It's an
See,
empirical
no,
question,
this is the
so-
this is the contradiction.
Tell us the
No,
problem.
but then he just
There's no
said
contradiction.
Tell us
you're
the
being
problem.
dishonest.
No, I didn't say you're being dishonest.
No, you did. You
no,
literally
no,
said
I didn't.
No,
Literally
you
never said
said
anybody's being dishonest.
a woman sitting there looking like a whale, rating herself 10, and you're saying she's being dishonest.
Through inquiry, I said
Right.
through inquiry, we discovered she was
Right.
being dishonest. Yes.
Okay.
You
What do you
understand
mean
the
by
distinction
through
there?
inquiry?
Like I asked a bunch of questions and she answered them and came to the conclusion she was being dishonest.
He inquired.
Okay. So she was
There
the
was-
one who
there
said,
was an
"Oh
inquiry.
no, I'm not
He
valued."
inquired.
Yeah, well, she literally said
There was an inquisition.
She said,
You could even
"Okay,
say there's an
physically,
inquisition.
yes, it's true. I'm blah, right? But emotionally, I'm a 10, or metaphysically, I'm a 10, or whatever." Yes, through inquiry,
Inquisition.
it was discovered that
That's
she
the
was
main
not
secret.
being very honest. Yes.
Well, that's. I think that men are going to be the best judges of how attractive they find women at the end of the day.
okay.
Well, we got a chat here from Alex. Alex says, "I enjoy your Christian views." Oh, hey, AB Check. Thank you for the gifted 20 memberships. Appreciate it, man. Andrew, but you lose me when you start acting petty, ignorant, and belittling of these women. If you want your message to be heard, is this tone policing? I don't know. The delivery matters.
Stop simping, Alex.
Dude, chill out.
Stop simping, Alex.
He has
Room
is
full
that
of,
Mary?
It's a room full of crazy feminists. Let's see you do better.
I'm not a feminist.
Yes, you're a feminist.
I am absolutely
oh,
not a
you
feminist.
absolutely are a feminist.
No, I'm not.
You're an egalitarian,
I am not a
vote
feminist.
harder feminist,
I'm not a
libertarian.
feminist.
Yes,
no, I'm
you
not.
are.
I'm not a feminist.
Then what is feminism?
Wait, can
I'm
I
not a
ask you a
feminist.
question?
Here, let's. No, are we
I
having
don't know.
an
I'm not a
argument?
feminist.
Sit there.
Please.
While we have the argument, go
You
ahead.
I'm a
define it.
woman.
I'm not a feminist.
Where did Maddie go?
So I'll agree with her definition. Feminism is the movement
I'm not a
towards.
feminist. Don't even go there.
I'm-
You don't get to say what I am.
I just
and
did.
I'm not.
I just did.
Yeah,
It's
well,
the
you're
movement
lying.
towards egalitarianism between men and women inside society. How do you delineate from that?
I have a question. Do you think that
no.
Okay.
Anyway, so back to this. How do you delineate from that?
Anyway,
Zip it.
How do you delineate from that?
I'm not answering your question.
Yeah, that's right.
You
You're
literally
right.
just made a false claim against
I'll
me
make
that I'm
it again.
a feminist, and I'm not.
If
so
you are a feminist, if
No.
you okay, so I'll define
you're a purple
feminism.
penguin.
I'll define feminism.
Penguin.
yeah, I mean he's just making things
Then
up.
let's
so I
let's have the
cannot-
argument. The delineation, or we'll allocate feminism
let's
this way.
not bring aquatic animals
Yeah.
into this
Yeah.
conversation. Go ahead, Andy.
A feminist
I'm pretty sure
and
you're
feminism
saying you're a
is
woman,
the
right?
movement towards the egalitarian equality of men and women. How do you differ from a feminist?
Because I'm not. I don't believe in feminism.
That doesn't tell me
believe in
anything. How do you
the
differ
traditional
from the
roles,
movement of
traditional gender roles.
egalitarianism?
Right.
That's not antithetical to feminism.
Right. I'm not a feminist.
So how do you delineate from the movement of the egalitarianism between men and women?
If you think she's wrong, why don't you provide solutions?
Why don't you let us have the argument without interjecting? Go
Because
ahead.
men provide solutions.
And women be silent while they do. Go ahead.
Submit.
I've not heard you provide a single solution.
I think it's hilarious.
The solution is to, I did multiple times. I already said we should limit suffrage. We should limit the women's right to vote. We should do all sorts of different things. I gave tons of solutions. You just have a selective memory because you are interjecting again when there's an argument that doesn't even include you. Go ahead.
I'm not a feminist. I just
Okay,
told
so
you.
how do you differ
You don't
from
get
this
to define
ideology?
what I am
do.
and am not.
I get to define what feminism
don't.
is.
This isn't some
Then give me a
gender bender
definition.
stuff where you
Then
get
give
to
me a
pick and
definition of
choose
feminism. What is it?
what I am.
Fine. Then what is the definition of feminism? How do you differ
I don't know
from
because
it?
I'm not a feminist.
You don't.
I'm not a feminist.
Wait a second. What's
Know what a feminist is if
what-
you don't know the definition?
is that a cup? How do you know you're not a cup? That makes no sense. How do you differ from feminists in ideology if it's the movement towards the egalitarian equality of men and women? Yeah, it's just nothing.
I'm not a feminist. I already
No,
told
yeah,
you.
I know. I
don't
you
believe.
just-
I believe in traditional roles, man and woman, marriage.
And if a transgender was sitting where
women
you are,
being
they would be like,
children.
I'm not a man, I'm a woman.
No, that's not. Look, it's not even the same. I don't even
It
understand
is
how you're
exactly
putting-
the same. So how do
you're
you
just
delineate then?
claiming I'm something.
Okay, so I'll just ask again so that I don't straw man any positions. Do you agree that feminism is the movement of egalitarianism between men and women?
You're wrong because the goal of feminism is to reach full equality.
Not
and
arguing
that is
with
not
you
what
one
she
at a
wants.
time, please. Thank you.
Zip
Go ahead.
The which is actually crazy.
I still don't see how you are the one who made a claim.
$200.
Here's the thing. You made a claim.
You are a feminist.
No.
Wait, just let
Almost all of your talking
And I
points
backed my
have
claim up
been-
with the definition and said you
I
don't
am not a
delineate from the.
feminist.
Okay, well then give me a counter definition how you delineate from it.
Just because you think a woman should be able to vote doesn't mean you're a feminist.
Okay, great. Feminism, do you agree, is the movement of egalitarianism between men and women or not?
I would say yes.
Okay,
probably.
how do you delineate from that? That's what I thought.
She wants the preservation of social norms for men and women.
What I thought.
and that is not what
Do you need a
feminists want.
cigarette?
I
Look,
do.
There's a little
I
cigarette
think I
break.
do.
No,
Break
no,
right after that
I
one.
think that. Good Lord. I think that for you to sit there and just claim I'm something I'm not is
You just did.
disrespectful.
I just said, is that
It's
the definition?
condescending.
You said yes. I said, how do you delineate? Nothing.
Yeah, because you didn't give me a chance to
Okay, I'll give you a
respond.
chance.
You didn't give me a chance to
Okay, I'm
respond.
giving you a chance.
Okay, because you don't know all of my belief sets.
Okay, give me the belief set that delineates from that.
on marriage, on gender roles, on the role of a man
Still
and a
waiting
woman
for
in
the belief
relationships.
delineation. What is it?
Okay. What?
Waiting for that delineation from feminism. What is it?
He's asking you how you deviate from that.
How do I deviate from feminism?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I believe that, women should be mothers and prioritize a motherhood role over a career, and that's one thing I think that feminists would probably disagree with.
Okay, but you would also agree that there's many feminists who would agree that that's just fine if mothers want to prioritize that.
Maybe.
Yeah, okay, so what actually delineates your ideology from the feminist ideology of egalitarianism?
That women should submit to their husbands.
That women should submit to their husbands. Okay, and are
if
they...
their husbands submit to, first to God.
Okay. So maybe there's if that's true, and we'll get into that next. Now this is more interesting. So when you say submission, what do you mean?
They should submit to their husbands.
What does that mean?
Like, they should trust their husband's judgment in the home, and basically, to a certain degree, they should trust his judgment and allow him to make some of the decisions. But I think that it kind of becomes one of the things where it's not that the woman doesn't have a say, but it's that they should submit to the husband.
What if
because
he
knows
says, no, you have no say?
Well, I guess the thing you'd have to think about is his decision making in line with with what God says and what the Bible says.
Well, the Bible says to submit
If
to him.
it's something that would
That's what it says,
Well,
right?
well, here's an example. If your husband said that you should go and say do it on OnlyFans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that a woman should submit to that?
Well, that wouldn't be an actual Christian marriage at that point, right?
Right. So at that point, he would be
But if you're in
deviating
a
from
Christian,
what God's law
if you're in
is. So
a
a woman
Christian
should
marriage,
not, in that case,
yeah. If you're in a
submit.
Christian marriage, though, he's a Christian, you're a Christian.
Right.
He's not going to be asking you to do OnlyFans.
Right.
Okay, so should you submit even if he?
As long as what he's saying is in line with God,
well,
yes,
let's say he
absolutely.
says,
with the Bible, with teachings.
let's say he
absolutely.
says something like this. Let's say he comes to you, and you guys are discussing finances, and he goes, actually, we're just going to do everything this way, and I don't give a shit what you have to say about it. And I'm emptying out your account tomorrow, and I'm going to do what I want with the money, and you need to just deal with it. Are you going to just shut up and take that?
I already let my husband do what he wants with my account, so.
Right now, do you have your own account?
It's a joint. He's on it, and he does whatever he wants to it.
Okay, well, maybe there's a slight deviation then, which is that you'll allow for some sort of submission.
Yeah, allow for him to look at my phone. I look at his phone. I can do. He can do whatever he wants on my accounts.
Do you think that women should be forced to submit in marriage?
I think that women should always be able to some degree, have the right to choose and have a right of consent. Basically, a man shouldn't be able to force himself on a woman.
Yeah, of course not.
A man shouldn't be like, basically, if a man's like, I want to have, you know what, tonight, and she's like, no, she has a right to say no, right? She has a right to choose.
Do you believe that there's implied consent in a marriage?
What do you mean? Like
your husband rolls over in the morning and you're still asleep and he plows you.
The fuck?
Were you essayed?
No.
No.
But if you,
So
but
there's
if
an
you
implied
were saying,
consent?
if,
Legally, there's already implied
yes,
consent.
in the law.
if you were saying no, stop, then I would say that it was rape.
Okay.
As soon as a woman it's implied consent. As soon as a woman says no, it's no longer consent, right?
Okay.
Can I just ask, how do y'all's view of feminism influence your expectations for dating and marriage and all that sort of stuff?
Also,
I like that question. I like that.
I'll tie this one up
wait,
with
really
this.
quick. I'm not going to let you get away with it because you called me a feminist.
You are a feminist.
How am I a feminist?
Yeah, because the only thing that you could come up with, and by the way, feminists
You can't just make blanket claims like that.
feminists who make claims that they're Christians will also make a claim for submission. They'll say, I'll do it within the context
not
of
true.
religiosity. But when it comes to society itself, you want to see the egalitarian movement of men and women, and you've said it over and over
I
and
didn't say
over
that.
and over.
I did not say that.
Okay, well then give me a deviation, which is not personal, but is a societal prescription.
A societal prescription. Here's what I'll say. I would say that my belief set as far as relationships go is very traditional in that I totally believe in the dynamics of the man fulfilling the male role, the woman fulfilling the female role, and those being very defined in that.
But feminists
what
can
I would
believe that too. It has nothing to do with an egalitarian prescription for society. What sorts of things do you think, as far as egalitarianism in society, would you move away from when it comes to men and women under the law or under any type of social patriarchy? Like, here's a good example. Do you support a patriarchy?
Yes,
Yes?
to a certain degree, yeah.
What does that mean, though? A certain degree.
I believe that men should be allowed to be masculine and fully embrace their
patriarchy means
masculinity.
men are in charge.
I believe in traditional roles.
Yeah.
Patriarchy
Patriarchy means
chivalry.
Patriarchy means the father, right? Mm-hmm. Men are in charge.
Yes.
That's what it means. So if
Right.
men are in charge and women can't be in charge, is that okay with you?
I don't think that that's how it naturally happens in the nuclear family unit, though, to a certain degree, because women do have say in matter. They do have a say in matters. It's not that a woman never has a say in any matter.
Do you think a woman should be able to be president? I feel like that's kind of what he's asking. President, or like just a large leadership role, something like that, right?
Is
like,
that what you're asking?
Are you saying that all women? This is my question. Are you saying that all
he's
women?
asking like legally what
Right.
we can't do that men can't.
My question is, so you're saying, okay, so not only should women not vote, but they shouldn't be able to hold any type of a job. They shouldn't be able to hold any political positions.
Political positions, no.
Okay, so why would they be expected to work and provide, which is a role that a male is supposed to perform for his family, but not be able to vote?
We don't expect them to work inside of a patriarchal system.
Okay, so you're saying the women should be allowed to work, though?
They should be allowed to work. That doesn't mean that they should have to work.
Okay, so how is that not a feminist belief then?
How is that a feminist belief? Because I'm telling you that I endorse a patriarchal system. Patriarchal systems traditionally have protected women.
If women are working, though, wouldn't that be considered the job of the man?
Work. There could be interests that they have. Or they might need a little part-time cash or something like this. But if you contracted 50% of the workforce, which would be female tomorrow, wages would fucking skyrocket, and I guarantee you men would be making a lot more money. So the question becomes, if you're inside of a patriarchal system, the patriarchy itself is in charge. Women can't hold political office at all. They say, no, you're not allowed to hold political office, which was the tradition of the United States. No, you're not allowed to vote, which was the tradition of the United States. What's your problem with that?
Well, you realize that the United States is a corporation, right?
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. That's some
Yes, it
sovereign
is.
citizen
No,
bullshit.
it actually is a corporation.
No, it's not a corporation.
It is a corporation.
What type of corporation?
It is a corporation.
What type of corporation? Is it an S corp? Is it an S corporation?
Oh gosh. Okay, so what I'm getting at here is, so women should be able to work and fulfill roles at corporations and at jobs, but they shouldn't be able to.
I said can,
They
not should.
shouldn't be able to fulfill a political role in office.
Can is different than should. You realize this, right?
So
if I say should, that means ought to do. If I say can, means capable of. So yes, women should be capable of working and should be able to work if they choose to work. It doesn't mean they should work. There's a distinction between those two words. When you're living inside of a patriarchal society, what would your actual problem with a patriarchal society be, or do you have none?
My actual deviation would just be more along the lines of traditional nuclear family roles.
Why would that not exist inside of a patriarchal
Because
system?
that's not what we're seeing today. We're seeing the feminist movement of today. We're seeing women pushing for, young girls to never get married, to just stay sexually promiscuous and just go get a job in gender studies.
I thought you said we live in a benevolent patriarchy where you guys allow us to vote. Yes, you did.
I said
Roll
the best.
tapes.
I said the best thing about a benevolent patriarchy is that they don't use the enforcement arm to oppress you.
Saying the best thing about something
Stop
implies
talking
that
and
it exists.
I'll get back to you.
You just told me stop talking in the middle of my conversation
until I finish this. Anyway, go ahead.
By 19-year-olds.
Oh my gosh, this is ridiculous.
Here, let's move on. We got to move on, guys. We got other things to talk about.